Black girl asks Elon Musk for a job. You won't believe what happens next. Nova balanced a tray of coffee cups as she moved between the tables of the small diner where she worked late shifts. At 23, she dreamed of becoming a scientist, someone who could answer humanity's biggest questions. Her passion for philosophy and science was unmatched, but life had other plans. With her parents gone, Nova worked tirelessly to support her two younger siblings while saving what little she could for college. Her uniform was simple, her hands slightly calloused from endless work, but her mind was a galaxy of ideas. In her pocket, a dog-eared copy of A Brief History of Time peeked out. Nova would steal moments between shifts to scribble notes on the nature of reality, driven by an unshakable desire to understand existence itself. As the night wore on, Nova glanced at the clock. It was past 11 p.m., and the diner was nearly empty. The lull gave her a moment to think. Her thoughts wandered to her siblings at home, fast asleep, and her dream of one day standing in a laboratory rather than a diner. The soft jingle of the entrance bell interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Elon Musk walk in, flanked by a small team. They headed for a booth in her section. Nova froze for a moment, recognizing him immediately. "That's Elon Musk," her co-worker whispered. Nova didn't respond, her heart racing as she watched him settle into the booth. Elon began speaking animatedly with his team, his words spilling out like the beginnings of a lecture. "XAI is the key to uncovering the framework of reality itself," she overheard him say. "The Colosseum project isn't just about AI, it's about redefining what we know about existence." Nova's grip tightened on her notepad. She couldn't help but listen as Elon discussed simulation theories, the nature of consciousness, and the limits of human perception. Her mind buzzed. These were the very questions she'd been pondering for years. She didn't know this encounter would test her courage and define her future. A moment later, Nova approached Elon Musk's table cautiously, balancing the tray with coffee cups in one hand and clutching her notepad tightly in the other. Her mind raced as she rehearsed polite greetings, trying to suppress her excitement. As she reached the table, Elon was mid-sentence, his tone intense yet enthralling. "Consciousness," he said, "is likely an emergent phenomenon, arising from the complex computations of neural networks. What we're working on with XAI and the Colosseum project is to simulate those layers, to prove that complexity gives rise to awareness." Nova carefully placed a cup of coffee in front of Elon. "Excuse me, sir," she said hesitantly, her voice almost trembling. "I couldn't help but overhear. But what if consciousness isn't emergent? What if it's fundamental, the foundation of reality itself?" The table fell silent. Elon looked up, his sharp, curious eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, Nova regretted speaking up, but then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Go on," he said, intrigued. Nova took a deep breath, her confidence slowly building. "If we look at quantum physics," she began, "there are experiments suggesting that observation influences reality. What if consciousness isn't something that arises from the physical world, but the physical world arises from consciousness? That would mean XAI isn't just mapping reality, it could be the key to understanding the source of it." One of Elon's colleagues chuckled nervously, but Elon raised a hand, signaling him to stop. "That's an interesting perspective," Elon said. "Are you suggesting a panpsychist model or something else entirely?" Encouraged, Nova nodded. "Yes, but not exactly. It's more like consciousness as the substrate of existence, similar to how space-time is the fabric of the universe. What if consciousness is the canvas everything else is painted on?" For the next few minutes, Nova outlined her ideas, referencing books she'd read, papers she'd studied, and her own musings. She mentioned theories like integrated information theory and concepts of quantum entanglement, tying them back to how XAI might fit into such a framework. Elon's expression shifted from curiosity to genuine admiration. "You've clearly thought a lot about this," he said, his tone impressed. "Do you have a background in science?" Nova hesitated, then admitted, "No formal background, just books, research, and my own thoughts. I dream of studying someday, but life has other priorities right now." Elon leaned back in his seat, considering her words. "You're bright and determined," he said. "I don't have any openings right now, but I'd like to keep in touch. Give me your number, and if something comes up, I'll reach out." Nova's heart soared, but she maintained her composure. "Of course. Thank you, Mr. Musk." She scribbled her number on a piece of her notepad and handed it over. Nova stepped back to let the conversation at the table resume. She felt a mix of pride and disbelief. But little did she know, her night was far from over. This was only the beginning. As Elon Musk and his team exited the diner, Nova watched them leave, her heart still racing from the incredible interaction. She clutched her notepad, where Elon's request for her number was scribbled, a tangible reminder of the surreal moment. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful, like her dreams weren't so far out of reach, but the hopeful spark was snuffed out almost immediately. The diner's manager, Mr. Turner, a burly man with a perpetually scowling face, stormed out from the kitchen. His boots thudded heavily on the linoleum floor as he approached Nova, his expression a mix of irritation and disdain. "Nova!" he barked, loud enough to turn heads. "What the hell was that?" Nova blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, Mr. Turner. What do you mean?" He folded his arms and leaned in close, his voice dripping with condescension. "You were wasting time, that's what I mean. Chatting up customers like you're at some cocktail party. That's not what I pay you for." Nova's cheeks flushed, and she glanced nervously at the other diners, who were now pretending not to listen. "I wasn't wasting time, sir. They were discussing something, and I—" "You what?" Turner interrupted, his tone sharp. "Decided to play Einstein. You think someone like you has any business talking science to people like them?" The words hit her like a slap. She felt her face grow hot, but she refused to let the tears pooling in her eyes fall. "Mr. Turner, I was just doing my job. I served them coffee and—" "Don't give me that," he spat. "You've always been too smart for your own good, haven't you? Always with your nose in some book during breaks, acting like you're better than this place, better than the people who work here." He sneered, and then his voice dropped, becoming more venomous. "But let me tell you something, girl. You'll never be more than a waitress, especially someone like you." Nova's breath caught in her throat. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Turner turned to the rest of the staff, who stood frozen in awkward silence. "And let this be a lesson to all of you. No one's indispensable. You start thinking you're too good for your job, you're out. Just like her." He turned back to Nova, his voice now cold and final. "You're fired. Pack up your things and get out. Now." Nova's knees felt weak as the reality of his words sank in. "Please, Mr. Turner," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I need this job. I have siblings to support. I don't care," he snapped, cutting her off. "Get out of my diner. You're done here." Nova stood there, shaking, as Turner stormed back into the kitchen. The other staff avoided her gaze, and the diners whispered among themselves. With a shaky breath, she walked to the back, grabbed her belongings, and left the diner without looking back. Tears streamed down her face as she stepped into the cold night air. The humiliation, the injustice, and the fear of what would come next weighed heavily on her shoulders. But even as she wiped her tears, the notepad in her pocket with Elon's words and number served as a tiny flicker of hope amid the darkness. Nova trudged up the creaking stairs to her tiny apartment, her head low and her thoughts swirling. The weight of the evening pressed heavily on her, but she forced herself to keep moving. As she pushed open the door, the familiar scent of warm soup greeted her, mingling with the sounds of laughter from her younger siblings. Her brother, Jamal, ran to her, holding a sheet of paper covered in crayon drawings. "Nova, look, I drew a rocket, just like the ones you're always talking about." Despite the ache in her chest, Nova managed a small smile as she knelt to admire the drawing. The rough sketch of a rocket blasting through a starry sky was filled with vibrant colors. "This is amazing, Jamal," she said, her voice soft but warm. "You're getting so good at this." Her sister Layla joined them, pointing proudly at a makeshift mural on the wall. The apartment's peeling paint was barely visible beneath a collage of drawings and clippings, all centered around Nova's dreams. Stars, planets, equations scribbled in Nova's handwriting, and articles about space exploration. Layla beamed. "We added more stars today. You said the universe has billions, so we're trying to catch up." Nova's throat tightened as she looked at their hopeful faces. They didn't know what had happened at the diner, and she didn't have the heart to tell them just yet. Instead, she hugged them tightly, drawing strength from their innocence. After settling them into bed with promises of new stories about galaxies and black holes, Nova sat alone at the small desk in the corner of the room. She stared at her vision board pinned to the wall, its edges curling with age. The board was a tapestry of inspiration, photos of pioneering scientists, quotes about perseverance, and a picture of Elon Musk, whom she had just met. Her eyes lingered on a quote she'd written in bold letters at the center. "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." The events of the evening replayed in her mind, the awe-inspiring conversation with Elon, the crushing humiliation of her firing, and Mr. Turner's venomous words. For a moment, she felt the sting of self-doubt creeping in, but then she remembered the look on Elon's face when she had spoken, the genuine curiosity, the respect. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the notepad where she had written down her number for him. Tracing the letters with her finger, she whispered to herself, "He saw something in me. I can't let this be the end." Nova took a deep breath and began reworking her plan. She pulled out her tattered notebook filled with her handwritten theories and sketches and began jotting down new ideas. If she was going to be ready for any future opportunity, she needed to keep learning, keep growing. The drawings on the walls seemed to shine brighter in the dim light, a reminder of the vast possibilities that still awaited her. Nova looked at them with renewed determination. "This isn't over," she said aloud, her voice steady. "Not for me, not for them." She glanced at her sleeping siblings and then back at her vision board. Whatever it took, she would rise above this moment and prove to herself, her family, and the world that she belonged among the stars. Back at Tesla's sleek and minimalist headquarters, Elon Musk sat in his office, a contemplative look in his eyes as he stared at the skyline. His conversation with Nova lingered in his mind, her insight, passion, and the fearless way she had spoken up. It wasn't often that someone outside his inner circle challenged his theories with such clarity and confidence. "She had something," he muttered to himself, "something rare." Turning to his assistant Maria, a sharp and efficient woman who had worked with him for years, he said, "I need you to look into someone for me. Her name is Nova, works as a waitress at a diner on 4th Avenue. I want to know everything, her background, her education, her situation." Maria raised an eyebrow but nodded. "I'll get on it right away." Within hours, Maria returned with a dossier. She placed it on Elon's desk and gave him a brief summary. Nova Carter, 23 years old. Raised in a rough neighborhood, she's been taking care of her younger siblings since her parents passed away. Dreams of becoming a scientist but hasn't had the resources to pursue higher education. Recently fired from her job at the diner. Elon's brow furrowed. Fired? Why? Maria hesitated, then added, It seems the manager was less than professional. From what I've gathered, he made some racially charged comments and accused her of being a distraction. Fired her on the spot. Elon's jaw tightened. He leaned back in his chair, the wheels of his mind turning. So, she challenged my ideas, got my attention, and then lost her job for it? He shook his head, his tone edged with determination. Unacceptable. Maria waited for his next instructions, sensing the shift in his demeanor. I want the full story, Elon said, his voice firm. Reach out to anyone who was there. Staff, customers. I want to know exactly what happened and find out where she is now. Maria nodded. I'll take care of it. As Maria left to gather more information, Elon gazed out the window, his thoughts racing. He wasn't just angry about the injustice. He was intrigued by the sheer resilience Nova had shown. There was something about her, a spark of brilliance tempered by adversity, that reminded him of his own struggles in his early years. Elon opened his laptop and began jotting down notes. If Nova was half as brilliant as she seemed, she deserved a chance, a real one. But more than that, he wanted to ensure that people like her weren't crushed by the small-mindedness of others. By the time Maria returned with witness accounts and confirmation of the manager's behavior, Elon was already formulating a plan. Contact the diner's owner, he instructed. But first, I think it's time I paid Nova a visit myself. He closed his laptop, a determined glint in his eye. People like her don't come around often. I'm not letting this one slip away. The morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Nova's modest apartment, casting a warm glow on the walls, adorned with hand-drawn illustrations of the cosmos, famous scientists, and philosophical quotes. She sat at the small kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee, trying to gather her thoughts. The weight of yesterday's events still hung heavy in her chest, but her determination remained unshaken. A sudden knock at the door interrupted her reverie. Nova frowned, not expecting anyone. Setting her mug down, she walked to the door cautiously. As she opened it, her heart nearly stopped. Standing there, wearing his signature casual blazer and a warm, almost mischievous smile, was Elon Musk himself. "Good morning, Nova," he said, his tone kind yet commanding. Nova's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mr. Musk," she stammered. "What are you doing here?" Elon chuckled lightly. "Mind if I come in?" Yes, why not?" Still in shock, Nova stepped aside, motioning him inside. The room was small, but Elon's eyes immediately went to the walls, taking in the intricate drawings and the collection of books stacked neatly in the corner. He paused in front of a detailed sketch of a black hole and smiled. "You did these?" he asked, pointing to the artwork. Nova nodded shyly. "Yeah, just something I do in my free time." Every inch was covered with meticulously sketched diagrams, thought-provoking quotes, and beautifully rendered drawings. Quantum physics equations intertwined with artistic interpretations of string theory. Beside them were hand-drawn portraits of famous thinkers, Einstein, Hawking, and even Musk himself, with small notes scribbled underneath. One wall stood out. Unlike the others, it wasn't about science or philosophy. It was a wall of compassion. Drawings of two young children, wide-eyed and smiling, were surrounded by words like "love drives discovery" and "resilience is our greatest strength." Nova had written heartfelt reflections on kindness and empathy, alongside inspiring phrases like "be the change you want to see." Elon stepped closer, his eyes scanning everything with intent. "These are your siblings?" he asked, pointing to the portraits of the children. Nova nodded, her voice soft. "Yes, Zane and Mia. They're my reason for everything. I want them to see that no matter where we start, we can reach the stars." Elon's gaze lingered on the wall, and for a moment he said nothing. Then he turned to her, his face uncharacteristically vulnerable. "You've managed to blend science and compassion in a way that's extraordinary. This wall shows not just intelligence, but heart. You see the world as it could be, not just as it is." Nova looked down, her cheeks flushing. I believe understanding reality isn't just about equations and theories. It's about how we connect with one another. Science is a tool, but empathy, that's the purpose." Elon studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke, his voice low but filled with admiration. "You're the kind of thinker the world needs, Nova. Visionaries like you don't just solve problems, they inspire others to believe in solutions." He walked along the wall, taking in every detail. One drawing caught his attention. A small figure standing under a vast, starry sky with the words, "What if reality is just the universe trying to understand itself?" written underneath. Elon turned back to her. This is exactly the kind of perspective we need at XAI. People who aren't afraid to ask the questions that matter. Nova smiled, a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. That means everything's coming from you." Now his expression is serious now. "Nova, I owe you an apology," he began. "What happened yesterday was unacceptable. I found out about the way your manager treated you, and I want you to know that he's been fired. Nobody deserves to be spoken to or treated like that, especially not someone with your talent and potential." Nova felt her throat tighten, a mix of gratitude and lingering hurt welling up. "Thank you," she managed to say softly. Elon continued, stepping closer. "When we spoke at the diner, I knew immediately that you were someone special. Your insight, your knowledge, your courage to speak up. It's rare, and I wasn't entirely honest with you yesterday." Nova's eyebrows knitted in confusion. "What do you mean?" Elon smiled faintly. "When I said there were no positions available, that wasn't entirely true. I wanted to see how you'd handle adversity, how determined you really were. And you exceeded every expectation I had. You didn't give up. You didn't let that manager's small-mindedness crush you. That's the kind of resilience I need on my team." Nova's heart raced as she tried to process his words. "Are you saying, I'm offering you a position as a research assistant at XAI?" Elon said, his smile widening. "You'll be working directly with some of the brightest minds in the world, exploring the very questions about reality and consciousness that you're so passionate about." Nova's hands flew to her mouth in disbelief. "Oh my God, are you serious?" "Dead serious," Elon replied. "You've earned it, Nova." Tears welled up in her eyes. But before she could respond, Elon continued. "And one more thing. I've made sure the owner of the diner knows what happened. Your dignity, your worth will never be compromised like that again." Nova wiped her eyes, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I don't even know what to say. Thank you. This means everything to me." Elon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me. Just keep being who you are. The world needs people like you, Nova." As Elon turned to leave, he paused by the door, glancing back at her one last time. "I'll have my assistant send over the details. Get ready for a new chapter. It's going to be an incredible journey." As the door closed behind him, Nova sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. For the first time in a long time, her dreams didn't feel so far away. Don't let anyone define your worth. Dream big and keep going. The road may not always be easy, but it's your journey, and you have the power to change the world. Just remember, the only limits that exist are the ones you place on yourself. For Nova, this wasn't just about a job. It was about finally feeling seen, valued, and capable of contributing to the world she had always dreamed of. And for Elon, It was a reminder that brilliance can be found in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes all it takes is compassion to uncover it. Nova's unique insights into the nature of consciousness and reality have quickly earned her the respect of her colleagues. She is no longer just a waitress with big dreams. She's now an integral part of Elon Musk's team. Her ideas on the intersection of quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence have sparked debates, breakthroughs, and new projects within the company. Her perspectives on empathy and compassion have led to innovations in how AI can be developed with ethical considerations, ensuring that technology benefits humanity as a whole. Enjoyed Nova's story? Subscribe now for more and share with friends who need a dose of inspiration. Thanks for watching.